Disclaimer: the following story and its characters are entirely fictional and crafted for entertainment purposes only. Echoes of Exeter Academy, Mason's Mystery Tales. Chapter 1, The Mysterious Aura. Exeter Academy stood atop the hill like a sentinel guarding secrets that time had forgotten. Its sprawling Gothic architecture exuded an air of somber grandeur, but there was something more, something that made the hairs on the back of one's neck prickle when they walked past its wrought iron gates. A place of learning, yes, but also a place where shadows danced to a tune only the night could hear. The students, with their youthful exuberance, traversed the hallowed halls with a mixture of awe and unease. Whispers followed them, tales passed down from one generation to the next, of ghostly apparitions that materialized in the dead of night. Figures that roamed the corridors when the moon cast its pale glow, silent but undeniably present. Rumors of doors that creaked open by themselves, of disembodied laughter echoing through empty rooms. Mason Sinclair was no stranger to the inexplicable, the dark corners of existence where mysteries slumbered. Drawn to the stories that clung to Exeter Academy like a shroud, he arrived at the school's doorstep with a curiosity that rivaled the students'. A seasoned investigator who had peeled back the layers of many a perplexing enigma, Mason felt an unspoken pull towards the Academy's ominous reputation. But Mason knew that to unearth the truth, he needed to become a part of it. And so, he donned the guise of a teacher, stepping into a role that concealed his true intentions. Behind his facade of academia, he aimed to delve into the very heart of the unsettling mysteries that had nestled themselves deep within the Academy's soul. The students greeted him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, their gazes betraying a sense of wonderment that masked an underlying unease. Mason's presence seemed to ripple through the atmosphere, like a pebble dropped into a still pond, disturbing the equilibrium of the mundane. Little did they know that their new teacher, with his quiet demeanor and watchful eyes, was on a journey to unravel the enigma that had turned Exeter Academy into a place where reality and the unexplainable converged. As the days unfolded, Mason observed the strange occurrences that flitted on the periphery of daily life, flickering lights, cold drafts that whispered secrets, and an unshakable feeling that eyes unseen were watching. The unsettling aura that had drawn him to Exeter Academy was becoming his constant companion, a companion that accompanied him into the depths of the unknown. Chapter 2, A Cloak of Shadows. Within the walls of Mason's classroom, discussions took on a different tone than what was expected in a typical academic setting. Instead of dissecting literature and debating historical events, his students congregated like moths drawn to a spectral flame. They huddled in hushed clusters, their voices carrying stories that shivered down spines, tales of whispers that brushed against their ears like secrets begging to be told. Emily Harris, a studious young woman with an insatiable curiosity, was among the most eager to share her experiences. With wide eyes that held a mixture of wonder and trepidation, she recounted nights when her dormitory lights flickered and her belongings shuffled as if moved by unseen hands. And then there was Alex Martinez, a skeptic turned believer, who described a shadowy figure that had materialized at the edge of his vision, its presence fading when he turned to face it. But it wasn't just the students who harbored stories of the unexplainable. Among the staff, Sarah Thompson, a history teacher with a penchant for the uncanny, spoke of cold drafts that seemed to carry whispered conversations from distant times. And Principal Jenkins, a stern man with a pragmatist's disposition, confessed in a moment of vulnerability that even he had felt an inexplicable chill that clung to the air like a shroud. Mason, while allowing the stories to wash over him, maintained a carefully constructed facade of normalcy. He listened, observed, and added just enough skepticism to blend in. Behind his veneer, however, curiosity gnawed at him like a persistent itch. He watched as Emily's eyes darted to the corners of the room, as Alex's voice wavered when recounting his experience. He noted the tremor in Principal Jenkins' hand when he spoke of the inexplicable chill. As the discussions continued, Mason realized that each story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of fear and fascination that spanned generations. He began to discern patterns, subtle connections that extended beyond the walls of his classroom. Shadows danced at the corners of his vision, shadows that seemed to grow more insistent with each passing day. Yet, he remained vigilant, for he understood that to unravel the mysteries that cloaked Exeter Academy, he needed to tread carefully in the realm of the unknown. And so, Mason continued to teach, to walk the delicate line between the mundane and the extraordinary. Behind his mask of normalcy, he was a silent observer, a sentinel amidst a sea of unsettling experiences. As the days turned into nights and the Academy's shadows deepened, Mason knew that the true secrets of the place were waiting to be unveiled, lurking just beneath the surface like phantoms waiting for their cue to emerge. Chapter 3: The Haunting Refrain. The haunting melody, like a siren's call, guided Mason through the labyrinthine corridors of Exeter Academy. It was a melody that seemed to originate from another time, a lament woven from notes that whispered of forgotten tragedies and unspoken regrets. Each step he took was in rhythm with the music that resonated through the stillness, a music that pulled at his very core, drawing him closer to its source. The trail led him to an abandoned music room, its door slightly ajar as if inviting him in. As Mason pushed the door open, the room greeted him with an atmosphere that bore the weight of ages. A grand piano stood at the center of the room, its keys moving with a graceful melancholy that defied explanation. But there was no one seated at the piano, no fingers pressing down on the keys. Mason stood at the threshold, a mixture of awe and unease settling over him like a shroud. The piano's lid rose and fell as if guided by invisible hands. The notes that emanated from its strings wove a haunting symphony that resonated through the room. He felt an otherworldly presence, a spectral observer of the spectral performance, and the knowledge that he was not alone surged through him. As he stepped further into the room, a sudden chill swept over him, raising the hairs on his arms. He felt the eyes of the unseen upon him, their gaze both curious and searching. Mason's instincts screamed that he was in the presence of a spirit, a remnant of the past that clung to the melody it once loved. His breath hitched as the piano's notes crescendoed, filling the room with a sound that seemed to bridge the gap between the realms of the living and the dead. In that moment, Mason knew that the Academy held more than just stories and rumors. It held a history of sorrow, a tapestry of lives intertwined and shattered. The eerie encounter in the music room wasn't merely a performance, it was a plea, a desperate attempt by a lingering spirit to communicate across the boundaries of time. The experience ignited a spark within Mason, a fire of curiosity that could not be quelled. He realized that the haunting refrain was more than a curiosity, it was a key to unlocking the secrets that clung to Exeter Academy like a shroud. And so, armed with determination and the knowledge that the spirits were trying to convey a message, Mason embarked on a journey into the Academy's past, ready to decipher the language of the spectral symphony and unearth the truth that had been buried beneath layers of time and silence. Chapter 4: Whispers of History. The Academy's archives, a realm of forgotten whispers and faded ink, became Mason's sanctuary. It was here, surrounded by the scent of aging paper and the soft rustle of pages, that he embarked on a journey through time. Diaries, letters, and photographs painted a portrait of the past, revealing a tale of heartache and tragedy that had remained concealed for years. Among the dusty volumes, Mason uncovered a tragic event that had cast a shadow over Exeter Academy's history. A fire, roaring with a ferocity that defied containment, had devoured the Academy's theater, consuming not only the building but also the lives of those trapped within. Students and staff members, vibrant souls who had once roamed these halls, had become victims of a merciless inferno. As he read through the accounts of the fire, Mason felt the weight of each individual's story press upon him. Samuel, a passionate theater student whose dreams of treading the boards had been incinerated along with the building. Thomas and Elizabeth, two star-crossed lovers whose love had been forbidden by society's norms, now united in tragedy. Mrs. Anderson, a staff member who had tried desperately to save her students, had herself succumbed to the flames. The more Mason learned about the lives lost in the fire, the clearer the connection between the past and the present became. The students' stories, the tragedies that had shaped their lives, seemed to reverberate through the Academy's halls like echoes refusing to fade. It was as if the restless spirits from the fire, their souls trapped in a perpetual dance of sorrow, were behind the unexplainable occurrences that had drawn Mason to Exeter Academy in the first place. The chilling drafts that whispered through corridors, the flickering lights that mirrored the erratic heartbeat of fear, they were the remnants of a tragedy that had never truly found closure. The souls of those lost were eternally bound to the Academy, their presence woven into the very fabric of its existence. And now, with Mason's arrival, they seemed to beckon him, urging him to uncover the truth that had remained hidden beneath layers of time and silence. As he closed the final diary, Mason felt a deep resonance with the souls of the past. He realized that the spirits were more than just vague apparitions, they were the voices of a generation silenced by the merciless fire. And with a newfound sense of purpose, he knew that he had a duty to these spirits, to give them the closure they sought, to put to rest the echoes of history that reverberated through the Academy's halls. Armed with knowledge and a growing connection to the Academy's past, Mason was ready to delve even deeper into the heart of the haunting, determined to unveil the truths that had remained buried for far too long. Chapter 5: Confronting the Spectral. As the days turned into nights, the Academy's unsettling atmosphere intensified, wrapping itself around the occupants like a suffocating shroud. The once infrequent glimpses of ghostly apparitions transformed into frequent and vivid encounters, as if the restless spirits had grown bolder, yearning to make their presence known. Whispers echoed through hallways, growing louder, more insistent, as if the very walls held secrets they ached to share. Mason became a witness to the escalation, the eerie occurrences unfolding around him with a relentless persistence. Objects danced through the air of their own volition, chairs skittering across the floor, books sliding from shelves as if turned by unseen hands. Each occurrence seemed to carry a message, a code waiting to be deciphered, a puzzle whose pieces were scattered throughout the tapestry of Exeter Academy's history. In the shadows, ghostly figures materialized, their forms both familiar and ethereal. Samuel, the theater enthusiast, stood in the empty auditorium, his specter staring longingly at a stage that had once been his haven. Thomas and Elizabeth's love story seemed to replay in the moonlit gardens, their apparitions caught in a timeless embrace. And Mrs. Anderson, her visage marked by an expression of desperate determination, seemed to rush through corridors with a sense of purpose that defied the boundaries of death. Mason's interactions with these spectral entities grew more frequent, more intimate. It was as if they recognized him as a bridge between the past and the present, a guide to navigate the liminal space they inhabited. He felt their presence like a weight upon his shoulders, their stories etching themselves onto his consciousness, leaving imprints of emotions that transcended time. And yet, as he tried to piece together the puzzle, he remained unsure of their true intentions. Each encounter with the spirits became a journey of both fear and fascination. The air was charged with an energy that was at once electrifying and suffocating, a dance between the living and the dead that unfolded in the shadows. Mason questioned whether they were seeking release, seeking vengeance, or seeking a way to mend the rift between the past and the present. He yearned to understand their intentions, to bridge the gap between worlds, but he knew that in doing so, he was venturing into uncharted territory, a realm where the boundaries of reality blurred and the spectral realm intersected with the corporeal. As the boundary between the living and the dead grew thinner, Mason realized that he was on the precipice of a revelation that held the key to not only the spirit's motives but also the Academy's deepest mysteries. Armed with a growing connection to the ethereal world and a resolve that burned as fiercely as the restless spirit's presence, he was determined to confront the spectral forces that bound Exeter Academy in their haunting embrace. Chapter 6: Unveiling the Truth. The Academy's archives yielded their secrets begrudgingly, revealing fragments of lives intertwined and fates irrevocably altered. Mason pored over hidden diaries, letters faded with time, and accounts that had been locked away like ghosts of the past. Each page was a window into a world that had once thrived, a world that was now woven with threads of sorrow and longing. The pages spoke of the lives that had converged within Exeter Academy's walls, lives that had danced on the precipice of discovery and desire. Samuel's diary entries detailed his aspirations and insecurities, the ink a testament to the dreams that had been snuffed out in the inferno. Thomas and Elizabeth's letters, written in the fervor of forbidden love, painted a picture of clandestine meetings and stolen moments, their words echoing the pain of a love that had been crushed by societal constraints. Mason's fingers traced the words, his mind a canvas upon which the past was painted in vivid strokes. The academy had been a place of secrets, a place where desires had simmered beneath the surface, unspoken and unseen. Through the words of those who had walked these halls before, he pieced together the intricate web of relationships that had fueled the fire that consumed them all. As he read on, the portrait of Exeter Academy's history became clearer. Forbidden romances had flourished in the shadows, love stories that had flourished like wildflowers between the cracks of convention. Conflicts between students, simmering rivalries, and a suffocating sense of isolation painted a tapestry of emotions that had been both fervent and fragile. The accounts of that fateful night were recorded with a trembling hand, the ink smudged by tears and frantic urgency. The fire had not merely been a tragedy of circumstance, it had been a culmination of choices made, secrets kept, and desires suppressed. Samuel's final entry spoke of desperate attempts to save the stage he loved, to protect the haven he had found within Exeter Academy's walls. Thomas and Elizabeth's last letters were filled with promises of a future that would never be, love immortalized in words that had never reached their intended recipients. Mason's heart ached as he unraveled the tapestry of lives that had been extinguished in a single night. He realized that the restless spirits he had encountered were more than echoes, they were the embodiment of a past that had never found closure. Their presence was a reminder of choices made and destinies unfulfilled, a collective yearning that lingered like a haunting refrain. The pieces of the puzzle aligned, the interwoven lives of students and staff before the tragedy forming a mosaic of emotions that spanned generations. Mason had unraveled the secrets that had bound the academy in an eternal dance of sorrow. Armed with knowledge and understanding, he was prepared to confront the spirits and offer them the closure they sought. The truth he had uncovered was not only a revelation of the past but also a beacon of hope for the restless souls that had become entwined in the legacy of Exeter Academy's haunting history. Chapter 7: Confronting Fear. In the depths of the Academy's heart, Mason found solace amid the echoes of the past. He had deciphered the tales etched into the archives, walked the corridors haunted by ghostly apparitions, and now stood at the crossroads of the living and the spectral. With the weight of history upon his shoulders, he devised a plan that aimed to bridge the gap between the realms and offer the restless spirits a chance at peace. Mason's plan hinged on understanding, on becoming a conduit through which the past could finally speak its truth. In the dim light of the abandoned music room, he prepared a ritual that blurred the boundaries of reality and the ethereal. Candles flickered like stars in the night, their flames casting dancing shadows upon the walls. Symbols and sigils adorned the floor, drawn from his research into forgotten practices that had once linked the living and the dead. As the ritual commenced, Mason felt a surge of trepidation intermingled with a strange sense of determination. He had come to Exeter Academy as an investigator, but he now found himself on a journey that transcended his role. The lines between his quest for knowledge and his personal emotional journey had become indistinguishable, woven together in a tapestry of fear and hope. His voice resonated through the room, reciting words that had been whispered across time. The candle's flames flickered in response, casting ethereal light upon the space. In the midst of the ritual's intricate dance, Mason felt a presence, an energy that pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. The room seemed to pulse with the memories of the past, the echoes of lives cut short and destinies left unfulfilled. And then, as the ritual reached its crescendo, the spectral figures materialized before him, their forms a mixture of ethereal light and shadow. Samuel, Thomas, Elizabeth, Mrs. Anderson, they stood as witnesses to a moment that held the promise of closure. Mason's voice wavered, his heart heavy with the weight of his role as both investigator and guide. Through the ritual, Mason offered a conduit for the spirits to communicate, to share their stories and finally find the peace that had eluded them for so long. Their voices merged, intertwining with his words, as if their emotions and desires had transcended the boundaries of death. And as the room grew still, a sense of resolution settled upon them all, an understanding that what had been fractured could now find unity. Mason's own emotional journey mirrored the spirits, a convergence of fear and hope that had led him to this pivotal moment. As the ritual concluded, the spectral figures began to fade, their presence diminishing like distant stars. Yet, Mason knew that their echoes would linger, that their stories would be preserved in the annals of time. The Academy's corridors, once haunted by the weight of unfinished tales, seemed to exhale a collective sigh as the ritual ended. Mason stood amidst the remains of the candles, the room now devoid of the spectral energy that had filled it moments before. The Academy's atmosphere had shifted, as if the very walls had absorbed the emotions that had been set free. Mason's role had transformed, from investigator to guide, from seeker of knowledge to bearer of understanding. The spirits had found their closure, their stories released into the universe like whispers carried by the wind. And as Mason stepped out of the room, he felt a sense of catharsis, a realization that his own journey had been intertwined with the Academy's history, forever leaving an imprint on the spectral echoes that had once haunted its halls. Chapter 8: Echoes of Redemption. The night of the ritual arrived, casting a shadow that stretched across Exeter Academy like a premonition of destiny. Moonlight spilled through the windows, casting ghostly patterns upon the floor of the abandoned music room. Mason stood at the center of the sigils, his heart a turbulent sea of emotions. The stage was set, the lines between the living and the dead blurring once more, as if the very air hummed with anticipation. The room seemed to hold its breath as the spectral figures materialized once more, their forms a delicate dance of light and shadow. Samuel, Thomas, Elizabeth, Mrs. Anderson, they stood before Mason, their presence a manifestation of a history that had been left unresolved. The atmosphere crackled with the weight of their collective memories, emotions that lingered like echoes through time. With a sense of purpose that transcended words, Mason stepped into the role he had unknowingly embraced. He faced the spirits, his voice steady as he began to speak, each word a thread woven with empathy and understanding. He recounted their stories, the loves and losses that had shaped their lives, the choices that had led to the tragic night that had forever changed them. The spectral figures seemed to listen, their forms flickering with the intensity of emotions rekindled. Mason's voice became a vessel for the living and the dead to converge, a conduit through which truths could be spoken and anguish acknowledged. As he shared their stories, he saw flickers of recognition, of pain that had never truly been forgotten. And then, in the midst of the heart-to-heart interaction, a transformation began to unfold. The spirits' anguished expressions seemed to soften, their ethereal forms less defined by sorrow and more by yearning for something beyond. Mason's words held a power that transcended time, an offering of solace, an acknowledgement of the pain they had endured. As the night wore on, the spirits' anguish transformed into acceptance, their forms gradually fading like morning mist before the sun's ascent. Samuel's figure seemed to bow in gratitude, his spirit finally free from the constraints of unfulfilled dreams. Thomas and Elizabeth's apparitions embraced, their love story taking a final, bittersweet form. Mrs. Anderson's presence shimmered like a fading star, her determination transformed into serenity. Mason's voice carried the weight of his own journey, his role as a guide culminating in this climactic moment. The Academy's walls seemed to exhale, releasing the echoes of history that had once bound them. And as the last vestiges of the spectral figures disappeared, the room was filled with a sense of closure, as if the very air had been cleansed of lingering sorrow. Mason stood amidst the fading echoes, his heart a mixture of emotions that mirrored the spirit's transformation. He had journeyed through fear and hope, unearthed the secrets of the past, and offered redemption to the restless souls that had once haunted the Academy's halls. The room was empty, the sigils faint marks upon the floor, but the imprint of the night's events lingered like an indelible mark upon his soul. With a sense of purpose fulfilled, Mason left the music room, the weight of the Academy's history now lifted from its atmosphere. He carried the echoes of redemption with him, a reminder that even in the face of darkness, there was a path to light. And as he stepped into the moonlit night, he knew that Exeter Academy's legacy had been rewritten, transformed from a place of haunted sorrow to one of peace and acceptance, forever echoing through time. Chapter 9: Whispers Fading into the Past. As dawn broke over Exeter Academy, a new light seemed to shine upon its historic halls. The once unexplainable phenomena, the flickering lights and ghostly whispers, had ceased to disturb the silence. The atmosphere had shifted, the weight of the past gradually giving way to an air of tranquility. Students walked the corridors without the unease that had once clung to the academy's walls, as if the very air had been cleansed of lingering echoes. Mason Sinclair, the teacher-turned-investigator, had left his mark upon the academy's history. His journey through fear and redemption had transformed not only the spirit's fates but also the academy's soul. The boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead had blurred and then faded, replaced by a sense of acceptance that had been long overdue. His role had been one of guidance, a bridge between worlds that had ultimately led to the spirit's closure. The classroom that had once served as a hub for discussions on the paranormal now buzzed with the energy of learning, the unspoken understanding that history had been rewritten. Mason's presence lingered in the very air, a guardian who had offered redemption to the academy's most haunted souls. As he walked away from the academy, Mason's steps were heavy with a mixture of emotions. The journey that had led him to Exeter Academy had been one of discovery and transformation, of confronting his own fears and unearthing the truths that had been concealed. The echoes of the past had faded into the background, replaced by a sense of solace that transcended time. He looked back at the academy's imposing facade, a building that had once harbored secrets and sorrow. The weight of his role, his interactions with the spectral figures, and his journey toward understanding rested upon his shoulders like a mantle. The echoes of his footsteps seemed to reverberate through the halls, a testament to the change he had brought to the academy's very essence. Mason's heart was both heavy and light as he left Exeter Academy behind. The memories of his time there, the encounters with spirits and the moments of revelation, were etched into his mind like pages of a book. He knew that the spirit's stories had found a resolution, their whispers fading into the past like echoes carried away by the wind. The academy's legacy had shifted, its history rewritten, and Mason Sinclair had been a catalyst for that change. As he stepped beyond the academy's gates, the sun's warmth touched his skin, a metaphorical embrace that seemed to reflect the spirit's newfound peace. He walked away, his journey both a reflection of his own growth and a testament to the power of confronting the unknown. And as the distance between him and the academy grew, Mason Sinclair carried with him the memories of a journey that had brought redemption to both the living and the dead. The whispers of Exeter Academy's haunting history had faded into the past, leaving behind a legacy of understanding and acceptance that would echo through time, a beacon of light born from the shadows of the unknown. Enjoyed Mason's crime-solving journey through the heart of mysteries? Don't miss out on future captivating tales. Hit that subscribe button and join us on Mason's Mystery Tales for more thrilling adventures into the enigmatic realm of crime, secrets, and suspense. Stay tuned for upcoming stories that will keep you hooked and craving for more. Subscribe now and be a part of our detective community as we unravel the intriguing narratives that lie just beneath the surface. Your next suspenseful adventure awaits, don't miss it.